Good evening, everyone, and welcome. This is it's now 6 o'clock on April 8th. This is the regularly scheduled meeting of the Sandwich Board of Appeals. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Tonight we're going to be working on old business, number 24-15 Village Green Comprehensive Permit -NSG Village Green -1 LLC. We will also have in attendance via Zoom Amy Quessel, who is Town Council, Judy Barrett and Will Downey from Barrett Planning Group. There are 40B consultants, and Sean Reardon from Tetra will participate via Zoom as well. Chase Terrio was unable to attend tonight. He will listen to the meeting and sign an affidavit as to such, and Mary's participating by Zoom, so we have a quorum. The public hearing remains open, and I missed the last meeting, but I did listen to the audio and reviewed the meeting and signed the affidavit, so I'm all good to go. The peer reviews to begin continues to be ongoing. Sean Rand from Tetra Tech is attending tonight's meeting via Zoom. I have 2 comment letters to read into the record for tonight. First is from Dave DeCanto, Department of Natural Resources. The Conservation Commission comments for number 24-15 Village Green, Forestdale, Mass. It appears that this project is not within the jurisdiction of the Commission under the Wetland Protection Act and the Town of Sandwich Wetland Bylaw. Please see attached map. We have another letter here from Dave Mason, Wastewater Implementation Program Manager. As discussed with the Zoning Board on Appeals on March 11, 2025, the proposed project known as Village Green, Forestdale, Mass. has a proposed wastewater flow exceeding 10,000 gallons per day and is within the ED watershed of the impaired Papaneset Bay estuary. Due to the aforementioned, the proposed project is subject to the following. The proposed project flow is over 10,000 GPD, thus is subject to the Mass DEP Groundwater Discharge Permit Program 314 CMR 5. The proposed project also requires Mass DEP to review and approve a hydrogeologic scope and evaluation. The proposed project is within the Papaneset Bay watershed, for which there is an accepted total maximum daily load, which exceeds the total maximum daily load for Papaneset Bay. As such, it is deemed an impaired estuary. The proposed project is subject to no net nitrogen impact and is within a nitrogen-sensitive area as defined by Mass DEP. An extensive review will be required by Mass DEP. Additionally, it should be noted that the Town of Sandwich Comprehensive Water Resources Management Plan requires the connection to the Town of Sandwich wastewater sewer system when such is available. Let me know if you have any questions. Okay. I'm going to, just going forward here, I'm going to turn the matter over to Judy Barrett and Will Downey from the Planning Group to discuss their recommendations on on-site recreational amenities. Then we'll move on to the applicant for responses and discussion. Then we'll move on to Sean Reardon with any questions he has, and we'll open it up to the public for any new comments or questions, and we'll go from there. But I just remind everybody with these new speakers, keep your discussions in the audience down because they pick up everything. Just so you know. All right.
Mr. Chair, just to let you know that Sean Reardon is here in person. He's arrived. Yep. Oh, sorry, you're not. Okay, no, you're not. Oh, sorry, the hat confused me. He's not here in person, nor is he on Zoom right now, so we'll be able to join.
All right, so turning it over to Judy and Will to offer their discussion on the recommendations for on-site recreational amenities.
Sure. Good evening, everyone, and thank you, Chair, for the introduction. As we said, I'm so sorry?
Oh, just a cough.
As we said in our letter, which is dated April 7th, the ZBA requested that we provide some comments on recreational opportunities in this site, as the previously submitted site plan did not have any recreational ideas, though I have reviewed the new that were submitted as part of the meeting packet and provide some alterations. The goal of this was to provide some recommendations so the board could understand what types of recreation would be reasonable as part of this plan, and give an understanding of what the rough sizes and types of recreation could be expected in a development of this size with 144 units. We felt that this was especially important because, I believe it's been noted in some of the other open hearings, there isn't a lot of public recreational areas available outside of this development. So if there was not recreational activities and space provided in this development, it would leave the residents without real access to those opportunities. We begin by outlining a couple of opportunities for recreation. There are both passive recreation, which usually refers to areas or activities that don't require specific prepared facilities, something like an open park, a sitting area, something where multiple things can happen, but there's no specific equipment requirements, versus active recreation, which has some form of specific and site-required activities, such as a basketball court or a soccer field, things along those lines. We ran through some options that we've seen before in types of developments of scale, including walking trails, which can run around the area and take up fairly little space. A fitness trail, which could be a part of or another part of a walking trail that provides some on-site opportunities for recreation and exercise with some machines. Grilling and patio areas, which provide some outdoor seating areas, and some alternative areas for residents to enjoy the outside and be more passive without as much equipment requirements. A swimming pool, which I believe is rather self-explanatory. A tot lot, which is a small form of playground specifically designed for children, especially young children. They tend to be a little bit smaller than a full playground, but they have a specific need, separated from a playground, which tends to be slightly larger and has larger equipment scaled up more for older children or teenagers. Basketball courts, which can range in size based on the types of basketball you're trying to play, things like that. And these require a significant area in our estimation. We said probably about a little bit under 9,000 square feet for 2 courts with surrounding areas. Or tennis ball or pickle courts. And all of these, one of the things we wanted to highlight for the board when they're making these considerations and for the applicant is it's important to provide recreation, not just a mix of passive and active recreation, but it's also important to provide opportunities both for children, which I think people think of a lot in these activities, but also adults, especially again stressing that there isn't a lot of access to public recreation for outside of this site. In the review, we provided some ideas of where it looked like there could be some on-site recreation in the site plans that were provided as part of the last meeting's packet, which obviously since the applicant provided some fairly significant amendments in the last plan. I will skip over this section a little bit, but ultimately our recommendations to the board on this were that the board, as part of their final site plan, all of their recommendations include at least a playground or tot lot of a significant size that is accessible to any of the 3-bedroom units, because those are the units that are most likely going to be seeing children, and so it's important to make sure the children have access to those units. A patio or patio areas of at least 1,000 square feet, really a usable size with some grills and some seating areas so that way people can enjoy those areas. A walking trail of a significant area, and have it both include access to lots 1 and lot 4 in the site plan to make sure that residents have access to all of this site and they aren't confined merely to one of the smaller sections of the overall site. We also recommend that the board instruct the applicant to provide all recreation areas within reasonable walking distance of all residential buildings, which are all on or primarily on lot 4, and recreation areas should be linked by shared pathways and be set back at least 10 feet from buildings, roads, and parking areas included in the final site plan. That will make it more safe for people using those sites. It'll make it less likely you'll have any interaction between someone using the site and a passing car, or a ball going straight and hitting someone's window or windshield. And finally, encourage the applicant to use any reduction in the agricultural utility structure or parking on lot one and solar infrastructure on lot one to increase the amount of open space or recreational areas by at least 50% of any net reductions that you see going forward. Those are our recommendations, and I believe that is essentially what I want to speak to on that. I don't know if the board has any further questions on that, or if anyone has any further they'd like to respond.
No, I thought it was very thorough, and that was what we were looking for from you guys. I'm going to open it up to the applicant and his representatives to just comment, and just again, the main discussions besides this is going to be solar, traffic, site design, and parking tonight. So if you'd like to speak to the Barrett report, or
Really don't have anything to say about the Barrett report. We had already, in our submittal, we had made most of our changes
Right.
in our conversation with the board from the last meeting. So we've kind of been waiting for responses to that from Tetra Tech.
okay. We see that you made significant changes to the site design, moving to the 7 buildings. Architecturally, made any changes to the buildings themselves? I mean, I know you went back to I just wonder if you had any, renderings of what they're gonna look like.
Well, we have submitted renderings, but I think, we've just kind of driving around through town today, and if you look at the drawing, it looks a lot like the wing school.
Right, I saw the drawing. All right.
When I looked at the, the individual unit plans, though, I didn't see any undulation movement on the inside of the structure. The wall is still a flat wall. I don't believe that the wing school is a flat wall. I believe that there are architectural modifications so that portion of the building sticks out, breaks up the facade.
Every 13 feet.
Am I correct?
Every 13 feet undulates.
Every 13 feet?
Every 13 feet, yeah.
What do you mean by that?
If you look at the picture,
If you
every
go-
13
if you
feet.
go along the front of the building in 13-foot sections, there is setback or bump out forward.
How much?
Probably 4 feet.
And that doesn't show up in the interior plans.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, you can see them on the roof plan.
I didn't
It has more undulation than the wing school. It has the decks.
Okay.
The wing school does not.
I guess I'll have to.
They're
take
very
your word
similar designs.
Okay. Sean, do you have any comments or questions for the applicant?
Not on Zoom.
No, Sean did not.
No, I have not heard. He was anticipated to join by Zoom tonight.
Okay. All right. Chase, who's not here, did have some comments and questions, and
I'm good. I just
go
have a
ahead,
quick.
Kevin.
That's not the plan.
That's not.
No, that's the original large building on the pond.
So do I have a design plan in here that shows this building?
It was in the application.
Should have it.
Yeah, there was a copy of some renderings in the original application they submitted to Mass Housing. I didn't bring it with me. All right. As I said, Chase had a number of questions, and should I read this whole thing?
Sure, yeah. you can go through
I'll
each
read the whole
one.
thing. It's rather lengthy, but bear with me.
Would you wanna, read and get responses before we go through everything?
Sure.
Yeah.
The first one is the newly defined open space being left in natural vegetated condition? If not, what is landscape plan? Landscape drawings provided are unclear and ambiguous. Additional plans showing undisturbed natural vegetation areas to remain protected would be helpful. Any comment? All right, number 2, still no clear landscape plan provided. How is screening of the development / solar field being achieved? Natural buffer is typical. Plans provided are unclear, ambiguous, and undefined. Okay,
But there was planting.
repeat comments.
All the stuff's in the material. We gave this to them 3 weeks ago, and no one responded to us. So we're sitting here addressing comments that we could have worked on for the last 3 weeks.
I just got these comments today.
That's my point. We put these in before the 17th with Tetra Tech. So,
Okay. Why are all the development dumpsters consolidated in one corner and abutting neighbor's lot line? Can they be relocated to the undeveloped side of the property north of roadway to move away from neighbors and offer more accessible centralized location for the larger community? This has been repeatedly expressed as a concern and does not appear to be resolved.
again, Sean Reardon and Deb Keller have had the last 3 weeks to work on these plans. I'm at a loss because Tetra Tech has not commented, and I don't have this piece of paper you're reading, Chairman.
All right. Similar question with regard to the proposed clubhouse, pool, playground, and garden area. Why not located on the northern part of the property across the road where they would be more accessible and allow for more even distribution of housing units in the space currently taken up by these services? The concept of using the north side of the roadway for open common space was raised in the last meeting, and the developer appeared agreeable.
And I would still be agreeable, I'm just not, I don't have a piece of paper that I'm looking at, Chairman, to help move it along.
That's an email that came from one of the board members today.
I get it, I know, I'm just saying we're at a little disadvantage here.
Okay. The emergency overflow for both the subsurface infiltration system number 1 and subsurface infiltration system number 2 appears to discharge from DMH 18 directly out on the property line with the abutting neighbor. Overflow drainage cannot discharge onto abutting property. Why is this being proposed and how will it be corrected?
Excuse me, Chairman.
Yes.
Deb Keller, our engineer, is here. Some of these comments are engineering, so why don't I defer to her?
Sure.
And if you could read that again, maybe Deb could help respond to that.
Sure, Deb, hold on. See grading and drainage plan C4.1. The emergency overflow for both the subsurface infiltration system number 1 and subsurface infiltration system number 2 appears to discharge from DMH-18 directly out on the property line with the abutting neighbor. Overflow drainage cannot discharge onto abutting property. Why is this being proposed and how will it be corrected?
So that discharge point is near the property line, but that is the low point on the property. And when we design the stormwater, we make sure that we're matching pre-conditions. So post-conditions can't be greater than existing current conditions, and that's how it's designed. So there's no increase in flow going in that direction.
Okay. Again, these are comments from this vice chairman. I'm just reading myself. How is a 20-foot wide gravel access emergency drive secured? There are no gates securing / limiting public access, and it appears open to Biblical Pond Road. Does this road meet emergency response criteria?
So there are gates. They may not have seen them on the plan. There's a gate at Biblical Pond Road and up at the top of the plan where the, I guess, accessory parking area is, sort of on the top of the hill. There, so that the energy system is fully enclosed, fenced with gates at both locations, at the top and at Pimlico Pond, and they're to be coordinated with the fire department.
Okay. Number 7, walking trail proposed around the solar field. See drawing C3.2, C3.3, C3.4, and C3.5 appears to dead end at Pimlico Pond Road. Is this open to the public? If so, ADA compliant trail needed? Question mark. Is it dead end or to be a loop? There is mention of it continuing on the road. Road is not secure. Comment?
So when we added the walking trail, we moved the fence in so that it would be on the inside of the energy field from the road, so the road would be accessible, so that the solar field is gated, but we're not blocking access for walking to be fully circulated through this site.
Okay. Just answered that question. Do we know if the proposed wastewater treatment facility is accurately sized / represented based on actual design sizing? If not actual, when and how will the site plan be updated to reflect actual sizing and redundancy leach field requirements as it relates to parking lot / solar field / road layout coordination? And final sizing if final sizing is dependent on Mass DEP review, should we hold any further comments until the plans are updated to coordinate with the fully designed approved wastewater treatment system?
So the field is sized appropriately for the residential uses, all of the uses on the property thus far. So I believe final design goes through DEP. The treatment facility will be submitted for review, but the field, we've done soil testing out there and anticipate field sizing as shown on the plans.
Okay. Gas service to battery storage building is proposed on C5.2. No other gas service is proposed for other buildings. What is gas service for?
Is that my error? That
Yeah,
might have
there's
been my
no
error.
gas service.
Apologize.
Yeah.
Okay. Next question is in regard to safety / emergency response concerns with respect to underground parking. Car fire and fire building would be 350 feet from underground entrance. Will fire trucks fit in the underground garage? This needs feasibility review from Sandwich Fire. Has Sandwich Fire Department offered any feedback on design scheme change?
Sandwich Fire Department has been shown the plans multiple times and has not commented.
Okay. All right, we're almost there. Solar analysis provided appears to be based on fixed type panels. There has been past discussion to explore / redesign based on tracking type panels. If so, the field sizing would be smaller. Civil design would change and review comments may vary. Should final review comments be held pending the final design coordination?
I have to defer to you for solar.
Yeah, and what I've been told is that the tracking does not change the size really of the field. The tracking is spaced out farther apart than just a ground mount.
I think we were also asked about reducing the size of the field and putting more solar on top of the building or the structures.
Correct, we haven't gotten to that point yet.
But I would say that the current plans do have a reduction in the field size from what was previously submitted.
By approximately how much?
I would guess around
15, 20%.
Yeah, 15 or 20%.
Does your key here tell us that? Tell us what it is?
So the overall plan sheet in that plan set, I did a table for the open space. And so that included, actually that's probably not gonna help us. I didn't, unfortunately, I did not calc out the reduction, but it's all along the, sorry, I don't have the.
It's kind of right, yeah. So
plan
it's
underneath. So this is the easterly side. Got hook.
kind of the east
to
end.
east, okay, sorry, so this is west, yeah, apologize, westerly side got pulled in, it used to be 20 feet off the property line, is now pulled in to at least 50, 60 feet, so it's primarily on the western side of the solar that, where it was reduced. I mean, we can get those calculations for a reduction.
And am I reading the plans right, is that you're gonna have canopies over the parking area where the EV chargers are?
Correct. And that's where you anticipated having additional solar
Correct.
to reduce solar
Correct.
panels.
To reduce the panel on the ground.
All right, and that's pretty much it for Chase's
Excuse me,
questions or concerns.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
were there any questions prior to Deb getting here that she could help better explain the first two or three that we talked about?
No, right, we did.
Let's see, landscape design. Open space and natural vegetated condition. You had said that was fine. Location of the dumpsters.
So we did revise them and put them in the corner that was appropriate and recommended by the peer reviewer,
Okay.
review consultant.
Through the chair, Sean Reardon is on hold.
Okay, well, I think we can sort of turn it over to him at this point. I went through these questions, and most of them were the same I had. So, Sean, any comments on where we stand?
Yeah, sorry, the first thing is, I mean, a lot happened when I was away, and obviously they came back with a significant redesign. It's far more elegant layout, far more efficient layout, so, but it's a significant change. I mean, the circulation changed, the parking changed, a lot has changed, so we're gonna have to re-review that. We're also gonna need to have the stormwater calculations resubmitted because all of the impervious numbers have all changed. I think all those changes are positive. Everything I've seen so far looks like a positive change. I am still struggling with the sizing of the solar array. Just for reference, I permit 5 megawatt solar array projects all over New York and Massachusetts. Typically, when we're talking about a 5 megawatt solar array, we're talking about powering about 1,000 homes. So we have 144 units here, and was talking about a 5 megawatt solar array. So there's a disconnect between how much energy generation there's being built and what's being represented as what it's serving. I understand that it might be a peaking issue, but when you have batteries, the peaking issues sort of take care of themselves because you're generating power during the day that you can use at night to store the batteries. So I'd really like to understand how they arrived at the size of the array they have to serve the facility that they're proposing. I still really haven't seen that clearly laid out yet.
Just one comment that I had on the solar batteries, Sean. Don't they make a lot of noise?
No, the batteries don't make
No.
noise. Really, the only thing that makes noise is like fans on the inverter, and usually those are placed central to the array. I wouldn't expect any measurable noise coming off this facility.
Okay, thank you. All right. So you've got things that you have to review and you'll have follow-up with the applicant or Merrill?
Yeah, what I'm probably gonna need to do, I would consider this a major change, and what I would suggest is that I issue a new set of comments based on the current site layout, because tracking old comments when the site has changed so much is probably counterproductive. That being said, I don't expect to have nearly as many comments as I did the first time, because I think Deb has addressed most of those comments in the redesign. but I still need to go through it. And what I'd ask is that if Deb, if you have a revised stormwater analysis, I don't need the whole report, I just need the HydroCAD analysis to verify that you've sized it appropriately for the new layout. And then, I'll probably just have a few questions for her about sort of circulation and things like that, but I wouldn't expect as many comments as the first one.
I would just clarify, Sean, that just a heads up, that we did reduce impervious, so the impervious coverage went down. So the way we looked at it was I did not reduce the stormwater BMPs size-wise, so looking at it from that, we were looking at it as we would still meet
Yeah, we
the
have a
requirements.
different collection system, so
Sure.
we'll just need to work through those details. If that's the premise that you're gonna keep the same size, then just give me a summary of what the old numbers were versus the new numbers, and that should be fine.
Okay.
Sean, so if you review the demand and resiliency analysis regarding the energy demand for the site, it appears that about 40% of what they're predicting is relative to the EV chargers. And they're looking at is essentially about 100% subscription rate to the tenants. So is there a number that would be more realistic in terms of sizing what that actual demand might be versus pretty much universal? Because that seems like a pretty high number.
Yeah, I mean, it's an order of magnitude larger than I would expect to serve 144 units. Regardless of EV charging, people are not, there's, I think, 90 some odd spaces. I don't expect there's gonna be 100 vehicles charging every night, right? That's just not the way it works, and they're certainly not charging from a dead empty battery to a full battery. So the bottom line is, 5 megawatt solar project serves a lot of homes, even a lot of homes with EV chargers. So there's a big disconnect between the size of the solar array
Dog ate my homework comment.
and the size of the project. My sense is there's going to be a significant net export of power to the grid. Now, that's not a bad thing, right? But it's not the logic that we've been told from the onset. Our understanding was that the array is sized for the facility, and I still see a big disconnect, even with 90 some odd vehicle chargers.
Kevin, you have any other questions there, sir?
A lot of my comments really go back to the first meeting we had. One of which was that I didn't see any reason why this project is being squeezed onto 9 acres of land. There's plenty of land, there's 33 acres of land out there, and you're squeezing all the buildings and other than the walking trail, all within this 9 acre site. I think originally you told me, because that was the way it was originally designed before I had any review of this project, that you were putting it on that 9 acres because that was okay. And that's what you thought housing would approve. The solar array wasn't part of the original housing approval, so I don't see any reason why moving and expanding, spreading this project out onto the land that's north of the access road would be considered to be a substantial modification of the plan. As I said, I think there were good points in every one of the plans that you submitted. Going back to January, I thought 2-story buildings were better than 3. I thought that the design of the townhouses on the other side of the road were preferable to the design of the buildings that you've got that are 3 stories, and they're all 3 stories now. You submitted a plan in February that had 2.5 acres of open space in the middle of these buildings, which addressed another comment that I had made about buildings being basically surrounded by concrete. And then you've done away with that and basically put in parking, swimming pool, which I think is a great idea, clubhouse, which isn't very big. So when I look at this 9 acres, on that 9 acre site, you have about 8,865 square feet of open space, not considering the little pieces that are around the parking lot. But if you look at large pieces of open space, and that includes the buildings. You got a 4,500 square foot clubhouse, you got a 440 square foot pool, you've got a playground that's another 440 square feet. And then you've got 3,485 square feet of proposed open space. So less than 10,000 square feet of open space on that 9-acre parcel. I think that the walking trails are a great idea. I think the amenities are a great idea. I don't consider the walking trails as being significant quality open space. I think they're an asset for the entire project. But from my perspective, I think this project has to be spread out. I think you have to put some of these buildings on the other side of the road accessing the project. And I think you got to put some of that open space between the buildings, the two rows of buildings. You could do that, I suppose, by putting a couple of those buildings, maybe 3 or 4 of those buildings on the other side of the road, which would create more usable open space within that 9-acre parcel. You could, I didn't see any reference to the question I had about labeling an area available for parking if you needed to build parking in the future, because if we give you a break from the 2 spaces per unit and reduce it to 1.5, which I think you were looking for, my concern was that if we don't have enough parking, then where are you going to put it? You know?
We sized it for 2. We sized it for 2 parking spaces per
The new
unit
plan is
instead
also-
of what we talked about last week. So we figured that would be fitting that flexibility.
Okay, so I mean, those are basically my comments. I don't see the need to have this all squeezed in on 9 acres. I think you could have some of this parking put on the other side of the road. You could have the clubhouse, the pool on the other side of the road. I'm not thrilled about having a 3-story, actually these are 4-story buildings when you consider that you got a parking garage underneath. I think it's good that the parking is closer to the property lines as opposed to the building. At least that moves them further away from abutting properties, except for the one that's closest to Route 130. But I think you could do a better job in terms of, spreading this thing out a little bit and creating more open space within the developed area of the parcel. That's my belief. I mean, I've said it not once, not twice, but probably 3 times. Said it the first time we were here that I didn't see why it was all being squeezed in to 9 acres. That's just my feeling. And
Primarily, that is to address the density of the BL1 district and what the Cape Cod Commission, again, your opinion, but the guidelines of the
you
local.
don't have to worry about a BL1 district because you don't have to comply with zoning, really. You don't have to comply with zoning, so whether it's
Again,
BL1 or
I'm
R1
complying
or
with the
C1,
Delta
it doesn't
report
really
from the
matter.
Cape Cod Commission. That's what we're trying to comply with, and that's the type of density that talks
I
to.
saw the comments relative, I don't know who prepared those, the comments relative to the Cape Cod Commission's.
I did.
You did. I didn't see any reference to the Cape Cod Commission's, where is it? I went through this stuff today. And,
The comment letter.
Yeah, but what'd you call the Cape Cod Commission?
Why would the Cape Cod Commission, though, be adverse to spreading things out a bit more on the property, as Kevin's been mentioning?
To create housing. Density and smart growth is,
Have a density and smart growth, you've got plenty of room to.
that's not smart growth. 2-acre zoning, 1.5-acre zoning, spreading things out, that's the type of policies of zoning and planning that have led to the housing crisis. So the size of the buildings add density and bring affordability. So there's mixed into this plan, despite what the civil engineer had to say, this plan with the cheap energy on site is a key component of the climate action plan of the commission. If you don't start putting in clean energy on site with housing, you will not have affordable housing for really anybody in the room. We've all seen what has happened to our utility bills in the past year. They've gone out of sight. The infrastructure that we're putting in here is to secure with a community microgrid, a community asset of infrastructure that secures affordability long-term, not for us, for the next generations who are gonna live in communities that are based on clean energy, like the Climate Action Plan calls for. So that's what's built into the design here. Are there tweaks that can be made to a plan? Absolutely. But we've built in all layers of the Cape Cod Commission Climate Action Plan to make a strong, viable project that works for the future generations.
You referenced these technical bulletins of the Cape Cod Commission. I didn't notice, and I assume that there exists, a technical bulletin relative to open space on any project.
No, because I said when I wrote this, I agree with what Christy Sanatore put in her comments about technical bulletins in her letter. These are to bring in the other technical bulletins that you would typically discuss through a Cape Cod Commission review process.
And I think I brought up the Cape Cod Commission letter and asked you if you were familiar with it. You said you
Like
were.
the back of my hand.
And it talked about open space and quality open space on the site. I don't see it here.
Yeah,
That's
it's
my
personal opinion. I see
That's my
quality open space, but it's, you know,
It's.
I think we're looking for more.
We differ. I don't see any reason why this project can't be spread out a little bit. You originally had buildings on the other side of this road. I don't see why you couldn't put some of these buildings on the other side of the road. Maybe move your amenity buildings to the other side of the road and leave that as quality open space. Move some of your parking to the other side of the road. But that's, as I said, that's my opinion. I don't think anybody on this board is ill-disposed towards the creation of affordable housing, but I think we have a responsibility to make sure that what you're building is good for the town and good for the people that are gonna be living there. And that's just, and I've repeated it once, I've repeated it twice. As I said, I found good points in every one of the plans that you've put together, but when the next plan comes along, the good points in the first plan goes away. You know,
because we're responding to his peer review comments, and if he sent his peer review comments, which he said 3 weeks ago he was going to, we'd have more comments here for this meeting. This was not fair of that engineer to not respond like he said in his letter that he would. That's why we're in this little impasse today.
and I don't think it makes sense. I mean, I'm not sure it makes sense to get Sean together with your engineer until you guys determine what is likely to be a final plan acceptable to.
We've already determined what the final plan is, and now we're having a conversation of how that final plan might be modified. Significant,
Well, if it's gonna be modified, it's not final, right?
well, I'm not modifying
And
it.
we're
If
wasting
that's-
our
there's the
engineer's
answer.
time.
That's the final
We're wasting
plan.
our engineer's time.
No, he's wasting my time. He said 3 weeks ago he was gonna respond back to
That's
us,
enough.
and he didn't.
We don't have to have personal attacks here.
You submitted on March 24th.
In your letter, you said March 17th, I'm gonna reach out to the engineer.
But you just revised the plan and no, well, anyway.
This plan is
The
dated
fundamental
March.
question I have is this solar array sized for the project only, or is it sized for export to the larger community?
For the project only, on-site community microgrid.
So you're saying you need a 5 megawatt solar array with full battery battery to power 140
I doubt it.
residential
I
projects?
doubt it.
Who designed the solar array?
Our energy company,
And have they, I don't recall, have they been here yet?
multiple times.
And
This started
What I
in
want you to
2000.
provide, Paul, is an estimate of the generation from that facility for the entire year in comparison to the consumption of the project for the entire year.
And it's inside the letter from the energy
It
company.
is not. I've reviewed it. All you have is a smattering of random variables and random numbers. You do
We
not
own
have the state.
we own an electrical engineering firm, so I'm gonna defer to the electrical engineers.
Well, so let me ask you this question. Will your electrical engineer provide us a certified letter certifying that the size of that solar array is designed specifically and only to service these units?
Yes.
Okay.
I would still like a number that estimates the amount of energy that's gonna generate over the course of the year versus how much power the 444 units will use over the course of the year.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
May I jump in here for just a second? This discussion about whether it's 5 megawatts, 4.1, all that sort of thing. The applicant has said that the design presented is for use on site. What I want to remind the board is that the law allows for commercial production. Mr. Reardon keeps wanting to look at, well, I don't know whether this is for on-site or commercial production. My point is that under the law, it doesn't matter because it's an allowed use under the zoning in that area. It is within the right of an applicant to enclose that or incorporate that into his housing production. This applicant's saying we want to use it on site, but the applicant could just as easily and very legally say, I'm doing it for export consumption.
Yeah, and the board could say.
That's Jepson.
That any portion of it that's used for export consumption should be referred to the Cape Cod Commission for review because it's not part of the housing dependent comprehensive permit project.
But it is.
But I don't have the expertise to determine whether it is or it isn't. But if you want to say that, I mean, you can split hairs, but if you're talking about commercial use, then we could sit here and say, well, okay, fine. If it's commercially, the law allows you to do it, but we don't have to approve it as part of a comprehensive permit. We can refer it to the Cape Cod Commission for their review as a development of regional impact. Right?
No, I disagree.
Okay, so you and I have disagreed many times.
We've done that before.
Yes, we have.
And that's what I see developing here, an impasse. The applicant has said they presented final plans for 10 months, and for the time of the peer reviewing, it's been back and forth over a set of plans. There were 70 some odd squawks that were written down. Our engineer has responded to them, and here we get at the very last minute some more comments and a request to do it all, to start over again.
You changed the entire design 2 weeks ago.
The design was changed in response to
And show me where it's been designed, in response to the comments that I made about quality open space. Show me where you've got 8,865 square feet of open space, because that's all I could calculate based upon the way the plan has been designed, because there are, areas that I can't calculate because there's no indication what that is. But that's 8,865 square feet, and I said, 4,500 of that is the swimming pool. So less than 5,000 square feet of open space on this 9-acre parcel. You've got it's minimal open space for an attractive, livable community. And as I said the first time, why it's all being squeezed on 9 acres. And don't tell me that I didn't say that, because I know specifically I said that the first time we were here, that I didn't think it had to be squeezed on 9 acres of land, that if you spread it out a little bit, you add some more open space, you make it more livable, you get, you don't surround all these buildings by concrete and other buildings and swimming pools, so don't tell me that we've gone back and forth, because you haven't paid attention to that aspect of it. You did pay attention to it back in February, because your February plan had 2.5 acres of open space in the middle of that project, which I assume was a direct response to the question that I had raised about quality open space on the project. And that was right in the middle. That was right in the middle of all these buildings, and I can't find the darn thing now.
It's basically the area where the pool and the clubhouse is.
Pool, clubhouse, and parking.
Right.
Pool, clubhouse, and parking.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
And I need to say too, none of my comments were of the nature of requesting a change in the layout of the facility. All of my comments were technical in response to the work that we presented. There is nothing in my comment history that suggested a change in the layout of the site. So to suggest that this drastic change from what was previously submitted was in response to my comments is misleading. just like I feel the statement by the applicant that says this solar array is sized to only serve the facility is misleading.
May I clarify something with the open space? There
See
isn't,
that plan you did in February? With
Yep.
all that open space in the middle of the project, which I assume was in direct response to the comments that I had raised in the January meeting?
Yeah,
That's all
then you said
gone
you
now.
didn't
But
like-
you didn't
then you
like
said
the
you didn't like that
large
one.
That's all gone now.
Yeah, because you didn't like that one.
but.
That's the one with the 3 buildings. You said you didn't like that.
I said I didn't like all the buildings being long walls, not broken up. But I said, no, I didn't say that I didn't care for the open space that you were
I
providing.
said that was my favorite one, and you said you didn't like it.
May I, we have in the current set, there is an overall plan sheet. It does have a table where we demarcated, or I tried to identify usable open space versus sort of a general open space for the project itself. I apologize, I don't know what sheet it is, but there is an overall plan.
There's a plan here that says 5 acres of your, I don't know.
Correct. So I could.
Is walking trails, 3-foot wide walking trails. And as I said, I don't consider that quality open space on the project. I consider it a great amenity, but I don't consider it quality open space.
So the playground, it's in the, closest to Route 130, has 0.8 acres, because there is open space that's being undisturbed that has frontage along Route 130. So you have that little panhandle that goes down that's part of the project, even though the zone line cuts it off. Where that playground is all green space, and then undisturbed space is in that small panhandle. So that whole area is 0.8 acres.
Which is basically 3,485 square feet of open space.
30,000, it's 0.8 acres. So it's not just the playground, it's the whole green space, so there's gardens there. And then as you move towards Route 130, there's a little panhandle that's part of the project. See where the zone line kind of cuts up? Yes, right there. So that's undisturbed area, which is still considered open space. That's not being cleared, but is open space to the project. And then again, you mentioned the pool and gardens area, that's about approximately 0.2 acres. Then we were looking at the walking trails that go around the natural, what I call temple or stormwater basin, north across the street. So we had that was the 1.75.
So you consider stormwater retention areas as quality open space?
No, but it's a natural one, so it's not being cleared. It's a kettle hole that was designed to treat the roadway drainage. So it's not being cleared, it's not mowed. It's a wooded area that we have a walking trail to be able to walk around that. Plus, we were counting the open space along the side of the solar. That was the 5.35 acres where we have walking trails. So we were looking at trying to increase the usable open space to 8 acres for the entire project.
Is this parcel ID number 12-306 labeled Deborah J. Kirk? Is that land that you control?
No. But I just wanted to summarize that is how we were looking at the open space for the project.
And you look at it one way and I look at it differently.
I completely appreciate that.
And could I just make a general comment, like in this plan, and going back to the parking that we're talking about, is that that parking area between the buildings, if we were back discussing the 1.5 spaces per space, that could become green open space in the middle there, like the plan that we were just talking about. Basically, that middle would be green, plus the amenity of the clubhouse and pool area. And then we'd go from 288 parking spaces to 257, so we wouldn't, no longer be in compliance with the 2, but we would be above the 1.5 per space.
Okay, and that's where I thought you were going.
That's where I was trying to go, but juggling the parking and open but we could take those 31 spaces out, which would put more space on that plan.
And I thought that's where you were going, and I thought that when we had this discussion last time, that I says, as long as you can designate some area elsewhere on that plan that would be reserved for future parking if it was needed, that you would do that.
So again, so we have
You
two.
didn't do that, you came back with.
No, I came back with two
parking
per.
spaces per year.
So I hit the maximum, now I can reduce it to address by taking those spaces
You
out.
would have done that this time around.
No, I can't do it, because I'm dealing with different individual comments, and that's why I'm not trying to be mad at Sean. I'd like to see that comments reduced to the piece of paper, so I can try to answer them as best I can.
Well, unfortunately, he couldn't be here when I made my comments.
Right, that's what we're kind of talking
That's the
through
nature-
last meeting.
That's the nature of the
and-
process,
Yes,
you know,
right. Yeah, that's,
but I'd still like to see it spread out.
I agree with Kevin. I know you said this is the final plan, but I agree with Kevin.
no, we just made a change with, what was final 5 minutes ago, we just made a change with Kevin. We were talking with whatever.
I'm not designing the project.
No, he's not
I'm
designing
here
the
to
project,
design
but
the
I
project.
hear better what he said. That's,
Okay,
yeah,
all right, so we'll see something updated at our next meeting,
yes.
all right?
So just before we leave this subject, Mr. Fitch, you had commented on regarding the solar, that it's for this site only, specifically, that the solar is only gonna feed this site, correct? So
That's my understanding. That's what our
Design is.
so there'll be no future demand placed on this solar field from anywhere else?
That's up to DPU and Eversource, not us.
Well, that's
They own the control of the system. Even the microgrid is fully permitted by DPU and Eversource. So they can
Correct.
tap into
If they
it.
export it, but you have no
No, they
plan.
can tap into it to use it for battery backup. That's required by the state law, that they can tap into those batteries and pull power if they need it. That's just the energy law.
Tap into your batteries, the
Yes.
existing ones you have, so they can take
If
some
we
of
built
those.
batteries here, they can tap into them. They can also drag that power off-site for some other reason. We don't have control over that. What the microgrid allows you to do is power your property and in emergency island from the central grid. So you're always connected to the central grid, but you have this decentralized island.
So the likelihood of exporting energy is pretty high. Because I know when we discussed this months ago.
It can get exported, doesn't mean you get paid for it.
That's, well,
I
nobody.
mean, you
nothing's
have
for
to
free.
tie into, there's no such, the electrons sit on the central grid.
I understand that, you don't have to explain it to me.
Okay.
So, but when we had this conversation months ago, you said there was no power being exported from the site.
Export is a payment mechanism.
Export is
It's
the
not
movement of
no,
electrons from
it
one
isn't.
place to
No.
another. So
When you're
that-
bringing up exporting, it's how the project is getting paid. The project is an infrastructure of that housing.
Correct, but you also, you have just stated that energy can leave the site and go to the grid. And it's not gonna be for free, we know that, because nothing is free. So there is that possibility that exists, that you will be exporting energy from the site to the grid, which is
No,
different.
not
from-
exporting. That'd be like Katuitt Road or the Hack property. All the time, that power is going to the grid. That's exporting all the time.
Correct.
This is not a commercial project that's always exporting to the grid. It is
I
grid
didn't say it
tied.
was. Again, we're talking about the same thing. You just stated
I'm stating it again. So
that
yeah.
energy can be taken off-site by a third party or whomever, right? That's
By
all.
Eversource, only Eversource.
Okay, so
By DPU and Eversource in the
energy
state.
can be
Yes.
taken off the site for another use, which
Yeah.
is different from what we discussed before.
No, it isn't.
It is, it's exactly
isn't.
different, because we had, I asked you.
Community
Just let me finish,
microgrid.
please.
No,
Let me
no.
finish,
You
because
gotta,
I
I gotta
asked you
straight, you
specifically.
need the definition of community microgrid first. Community microgrid is not a solar energy system.
I understand
It
that.
could be a solar energy
I
system.
understand that,
Yeah.
but it was presented to us that this would serve this subdivision and only.
And it's still being, so
But it's not that clear, it's not exactly. the
I
way
can
it's
clear it
been
up. The project you approved at Brightside powers only the grid.
Mhm.
Okay?
under comp permit.
under a comp permit, Brightside powers the grid. That's not how this project works like Brightside. The electrons stay on the batteries, on the property, get consumed in the buildings. Absent the buildings, there's no need for the power. That's how this project works.
Yes.
So it's different, 180-degree opposite of Katuitt Road, Hack, and Brightside.
But again, it's
Or
still,
NRG's project. Those
still
are all
could be used for
commercial solar grid projects.
but it still
This
could be
is an
used
energy infrastructure project, community microgrid. Different. All covered under 48, section 3, paragraph 9, but it's different.
Okay.
Let me ask you this question. The three-story building that you have adjacent to the residential lot that fronts on Route 130, can that be reduced to a two-story building in your townhouses that you would need to make up the total number of 20 units be placed north of that main access road? So that you don't have a three-story building so close to a residential
Yes.
lot?
Yes.
And can the proposed playground, I mean, I'm not sure these people that live in that house along Katuitt Road, Route 130, will be thrilled about having a play yard in their playground in their backyard either.
Oh, the pickleball courts that he suggests.
Yeah, right. Well, the pickleball courts, I mean, the noise is the problem with the pickleball courts, so I don't think anybody would want pickleball courts at all, but
it's
seems to me that putting a playground in, I mean, that open space would be great, move the playground. If you can eliminate a floor in that building and move those to townhouses on the other side.
We have no issue
Put the
with that.
playground on the other side of the street, maybe put the pool in the clubhouse on the other side of the street, and replace all that interior with open space. I would find the project more palatable than what I see on this plan. And I don't know about the rest of them.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. Anything from you, Mr. Killian? Nothing. Any comments from our consultants or Amy? Do you have any comments or questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Amy Kessel, Town Council. I guess the only thing that I would state is that I just want to make it very clear to everyone that the applicant has acknowledged that there will be another change to this project. So it seems to me that that change should be made before Sean starts another review. And I thought that I personally just heard some really good suggestions about putting some things across the street. What does the applicant think of that? Is that going to be another change? Because if that's the case, let's make all the changes now.
So can I speak to? So somewhat of what you just outlined to me, we were hoping, and again, he wasn't. Sean couldn't be at the last meeting and thought he might talk in the last 3 weeks. It would be very helpful if the engineers could get together and resolve these details of what they're talking about and make the changes.
These are not engineering designs.
No,
These are
you
not
are,
stormwater design, these are not parking layout, these are planning and development.
right, you're
These are
making
not
changes.
for-
You're making significant changes to your plan, which I think should be noted are very positive changes. So we asked for significant open space, you provided, you made a change. So tonight, what I heard some very good suggestions from the board. I also heard that there was definitely going to be a change made. So that's not engineering. Once you come up with your plan, then that plan goes to Sean. But the planning and where the layout, all of that stuff has to be done by you guys. Now, Mr. Corain just had some great suggestions. So will those be taken into consideration? And if so, I guess you don't have to answer us now, but if so, make those on the plan and let's get a final or near final plan over to Sean. Then Sean and Deb can go back and forth with any kind of calculations that they need or any questions that Sean has, but not until we have a project that actually can be reviewed. And then, Mr. Chairman, the only other question that I still am not certain that the applicant has answered Sean's question with regard to solar.
Well, Sean, if you could just reiterate what you said before about the numbers you're looking for to move forward or to get a better handle on what's happening here.
Yes, I'd like a comparison of the amount of energy consumed by the 144 unit project over the course of the year. In comparison, the amount of energy that will be generated by the solar array over that same year. And I am virtually certain that this facility is sized substantially larger than is needed to supply the power to 144 units.
Could you explain the stretch code to us, Sean?
All I can tell you is that I do 5 megawatt solar projects all over New York and all over Massachusetts.
So do we, Sean.
So again, explain the stretch code to me.
The stretch code has nothing to do with the amount of solar panels you have on site.
Yes, it does.
To how many that you need to produce the power for those units.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure that, that Mr. Cleary is being, is helping at all tonight. So perhaps the attorney might want to jump in. John, are you going to revise the plans and get us the plans that can be sent out for review?
It's not up to me.
Attorney Fish?
You gotta have a meeting. It's not up to you, you want me.
The objective here is not to have to try to do this at a meeting, have you redo a set of plans and come back, have us look at the plans, have us comment on the plans. The objective here is I made some recommendations or I made some comments, okay?
Are we talking about solar or are we talking about the site plan?
Well, I'm not interested in the solar right now. I'm talking about the site plan, okay? The solar, Sean can submit some questions and then you can submit them to your energy expert and have your energy expert respond to questions that Sean puts on paper. And
That would be great.
And then we can consider those. But as I said, you know, and I think everybody agrees with me that spreading this thing out a little bit, and if that means reducing one 3-story building to a 2-story building, putting units on the other side of the street, creating that corridor of open space between the 6 buildings that remain on this side of the street, and moving your clubhouse and pool to the other side of the street, the playground area to the other side of the street, designating on the plan future parking availability if it's needed. If those are the types of changes that recommendations that you want to make, it makes sense, you're willing to make, it makes sense to make those before Sean reviews the plans. So you come back here in a month or 2 weeks or whenever it is, and you've made those changes. But he doesn't get them until, 3 days before the hearing. He's not gonna have a chance to comment on it. So it makes sense to, if you're gonna make those changes, if you're not, you're not.
Well, I heard Paul say we are gonna make them.
Yeah, and the only thing, as Amy is saying to me, the only thing I'm frustrating is there was a comment period of 3 weeks to the changes we made. And we haven't had any input, that's all. So if we get
We're frustrated with that.
we got the input tonight on the
Well,
fly.
I reviewed your plans when I got them this week, and I can't communicate with you directly because my communications have to be at an open meeting.
Right,
Okay, so that's the way it is.
which is why we have a peer review to help coordinate this.
No, my peer review is for civil engineering. Your audience, as far as planning, facility layout, the aesthetics of the project, is the zoning board of appeals. I am here to inform the zoning board of appeals to make sure they're confident that what you put on the plan meets engineering standards and is permittable as represented. I am not here to comment on architecture, open space.
Do you have any comments on the site distance, please? Did you have comments on the site distance, number 6?
Site distance is a safety concern, traffic related, that is an engineering discipline.
No.
That is not a subjective evaluation.
But I'm saying, did you have a comment on our response to that?
Yes, Amy?
Again, I think that we just need to focus instead of going back and forth. Are you going to submit new plans? Will the new plans have changes to them?
Mr. Cleary, Mr. Cleary, the town council is addressing you.
I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
Will you have new plans? Will you be submitting new plans?
We're gonna have a meeting on Friday to discuss what happened tonight, and I'll get back to Leanne.
Okay.
Sean, did you or anybody in your organization review the traffic study?
We did in our initial review of the project, yes.
Okay, and are there any additional comments that you need to make based upon any changes that they may have made on this set of plans?
I've seen the information that's been submitted. They provided site design and site distance triangles, so I just need to confirm that they fit the way they're described. Because in the period we reviewed last time, I believe some of those site distances crossed over private property, so we have to make sure that that's still not the case.
He hasn't even looked at the
So that's something that you can get together with their engineer and discuss that and work that issue out.
So for clarification, the property that's abutting is also, we can coordinate and make those clearances work on those properties adjacent to this.
Because we own them.
Yes. And then.
Well, they're not part of the application.
They aren't, so that it would be an easement and it would be, obviously, we can clear on it.
So if there's an easement needed, then you'll provide us documentation showing us that that easement will be in place. So that'll be a condition of the plan if an easement is needed.
Condition.
Right, to make a condition of any approval that would be part of it.
Sure.
One of the other questions that I had raised at the last meeting, Sean, that you weren't here, was are we sure that all the runoff that's created by the development, including the clearing that took place or will take place or has taken place for the solar array, will be able to be retained on site based upon, you know, the drainage plans and structures that you've seen?
Yeah, I can tell you that I have a high level of confidence in the drainage design. The requirement is that you can't discharge more runoff than occurred under pre-development conditions. Whether that means all of the runoff is staying on site, I don't know, but I would suspect, given the soils that are out there, that the smaller storms are all contained on site. But I will assure you that their design will meet stormwater standards.
Okay. Jim, you have any other questions? Or Kevin, I think you've made your point perfectly clear, and I agree with you. Any member from the public like to speak to this permit? And please just be as concise and polite as you can. But stand up and tell them your name and we'll go from there.
My name is Louis Benito. We live up on Wellfield Road. Two questions. One, I would think that the runoff, even if it's the same as what's happening now, will be contaminated because a lot of it's coming off of a parking lot. That's one comment. The other is concerning the solar. What happens, let's say your batteries are charged, it's a nice bright sunny day and your array is producing more than what the project is using. What happens to that extra power? It doesn't all go to the batteries because they're charged. There's only a little trickle charge to maintain them until nighttime. What happened? You said that it goes back into the grid, but you don't get paid for it, which doesn't sound right. What happens to that? That power, that extra power?
Again, it's all designed by Eversource and DPU. So what they do is that they do with those electrons.
So those electrons go into the grid?
It's the peak time of year when the power plant is being turned on for a peaker. So there's an excess need for electrons at that time of year when the sun's out.
I think the answer is it goes back into the grid.
Okay, it goes back into the grid.
Yeah.
Why then would somebody, I don't know who, not get paid for that?
It's really,
providing power into the grid for nothing, for which they charge us a fortune, not to mention a delivery charge. I've yet to see a truck pull up to my house with a load of electricity. Not only that, it shouldn't matter how much you use, because they're not going to increase the size of the wires or anything else to deliver it, which is a ripoff, but that's a different conversation. Anyway, that was my question. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for taking public comment. I'm Chris Dennis, Friends of Peters Pond. I live in Sandwich. I live on 7 Evson Drive. And I have a couple of comments about a couple of things that were in the meeting packet this week. I want to comment on these two reports that were in the meeting packet. Okay, so the first report on the Energy Inventory Analysis and Assumptions Report, I don't completely understand if this is a report from an actual engineering solar design company. I know that at the bottom of the report, it is signed by someone by the name of Steve Hazel, and that he is the owner of Renewable Energy Alliance LLC. So I was curious and I looked up Steve on the internet, and apparently he did work for owner the Renewable Energy Alliance, but he is now currently based in Philadelphia, and he works for a company called GreenX Solar. So I'm not really sure of, there's no date on this report, so I don't know if this is a report that he made a long time ago when he did work for this other company. So that is a little bit confusing to me. The other thing that's confusing is that it mentions on page 2 that the solar primary on-site energy generation is 4.1 megawatts. And what's interesting is there's a solar field off of Cotuit Road in Sandwich that you're probably familiar with. And that solar field, the panels take up about 10.8 acres. It's on an 18-acre site, but they take up 10.8 acres. And in the Sandwich enterprise, that solar field generates 4.4 megawatts of power. So what I'm confused about is this solar field is on 23 acres and it's producing less power than the 10.5 acres that we have currently on Cotuit Road. So that doesn't make sense to me, why this large solar field would produce less. And the other thing is that this Cape Cod Commission alignment report, I'm not really clear on the objective of the report. I thought it might have been written by the Cape Cod Commission, but it is not dated, it's not signed. I think earlier, Mr. Clary said that he wrote it. And what I find interesting is that the formatting of these two reports is extremely similar. So I would like to ask the board, as far as these reports, I think that the Steve Hazel, I think this report should be vetted. And I think that, you know, not only for the author, but also for the information that's inside the report. And the last comment I had has to do also with open space that, you know, that we've been talking about tonight. And I noticed in the Merrill peer review response letter, number 7, that it says the revised site layout now includes approximately 8.10 acres of usable open space. The lot that the apartments are on is about a little over 9 acres. So I don't know where the 8 acres is incorporated of open space and recreation in the 9 acres. And if it's on the solar field, I don't understand how, I mean, we're talking about,
there's a 3 foot wide walking trail.
Around the solar field?
No, I think it goes around the site, does it not?
It goes,
Follows the sidewalks, goes around the solar field, up the gravel driveway and back through the residential development. So you have a full loop. The solar was reduced to, I believe, 14 acres and change field-wise. So out of 21 acres, we have 6-7 acres of open space, which is where the walking trail meanders through.
And the walking trail is 5 acres,
Okay, that's 5 acres of walking trail.
according to the legend we've got here.
Correct.
Okay,
Tells
Around
me
the
that
solar field.
that the walking trails on the north, the 1.75, and the walking trails around the energy system, the 5.35 acres. So it's over 7 acres of walking trails. But that,
Okay.
you know, that's a 3-foot wide trail.
okay.
Over a period which could,
I agree, for me, I was thinking more along the lines of, you know, recreational, open space,
Well, I think
and
I
that
think
large
that was
amount,
what
which you already all
what we
discussed
addressed at the
today, which you
beginning.
all discussed today, so. So, you know, my 3 points would be, you know, I really think that the board should have some solid information from an energy company, and that either needs to be under an independent review. I find it difficult to trust this paperwork that's been submitted. And of course, you know, this report, I know it was not written by the Cape Cod Commission, so that answers that question. And again, of course, the open space, which we've already discussed. So that's all my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Jeff Payne, Forestdale. Just a quick question. I want tonight to be able to commit that the applicant will answer Mr. Reardon's 2 basic questions about the solar array, and that they would commit to answering that tonight at this meeting for the next meeting.
That's our intent.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay.
And I'd like to make sure the basis for those numbers are provided. So the calculations and the way it was derived should be provided so that we can fact check it.
And who's going to be providing that information? Not you, Deb, but your
Electrical engineers.
All right, works for me. Anybody else from the public like to speak? Yes, ma'am.
I am Sue Karai. I live at 6 Sheldon Lane in Forestdale, which is very close to this proposed project. I guess my first question's kind of rhetorical, but if there are 33 total acres and this is encompassed in 9, what are the plans for the other 24 acres? My second question was about traffic. I was glad to hear the word traffic finally be mentioned. The traffic, as we all know, on 130 is very busy already. When will we get some idea of the proposed increase in traffic, and will there be a traffic light to stop horrific accidents from people coming out of this and trying to turn left, especially onto 130? I'm concerned about that. And then just as a parent, and this is just a question for my own edification, if we have 33 acres, why would the playground with toddlers and little children be close to Route 130, where there is a lot of traffic? We all try to be good parents, but our kids on occasion can get away from us. I'm just wondering, why would a playground be close to 130 when there is so much more space where all the trees have been raised already? So those are my questions, and I thank you.
Thank you. And I think, the applicant has total understanding that we'd like to see some, redesign, and that would be part of it.
And a traffic report has been submitted. Sean, you've got the traffic report, and you've reviewed and will be reviewing the traffic report. So if there are any recommendations that our peer review and engineer have to make, then that'll be brought up and dealt with.
Yeah, right. So as part of the very initial submittal, they provided a traffic study, which we reviewed, and we made some comments. Most notably, we asked about doing a warrant analysis for the left turn pocket on 130, and I see that they've added a left turn pocket onto 130, so, that's something we're gonna have to review too. But they have provided that. Those numbers have been in our hands for several months, and the numbers reflect about a 50 vehicle increase in the peak hour. And Route 130 is a fairly substantially traveled road, so the added traffic is relatively small in comparison to the volume that's on there. But that being said, that left turn into the site from 130 has to be designed properly, and we'll review that in the next go around.
Thanks, Sean. All right, anyone else from the public like to speak to this matter?
Susan Perry, Shore Drive. I just have a question, Sean. If it's 144 units, how could it only be 50 additional cars?
That's 50 cars in the peak hour. So when we analyze traffic impacts, it's really the impacts that happen at the peak traveling period. So that's when you have all your backups, that's when you have all your problems. In the other hours of the day when traffic's not so stressful and not so tense, it's less of an issue to address. So we use the term peak hour to reflect the 2 periods during the day when it generates the most traffic. So they have what's called the AM peak hour and the PM peak hour. And those are when basically your commuting time. During those hours, that's when they had 50 cars. I think the total during the day is somewhere in the range of 600. But the important thing from a traffic analysis standpoint is what happens during the peak periods of the day.
So only 50 vehicles will be going to work. Everybody else will be staying home.
50 vehicles coming and going during that 60-minute period.
So the other 90 will stay home all day or go off.
These are all numbers that come out of what are called IT trip generation tables. So these are all numbers that are part of a well-documented analysis methodology that the applicant doesn't have any latitude for how they generate those numbers. They're all pulled directly from the Institute of Transportation Engineering.
All right, anyone else? All right, not seeing anyone else. Leanne, I'm gonna just defer to you for next meeting date and time.
Sure, so our next meeting is April 22nd. We already have 3 items before the board that night, and with some site design, it may be preferable to go to May 13th, which would be the first meeting of the month of May. The extension of time brings us to May 11th. If you were amenable to go to June 10th, that would be 30 days. If you didn't want to give us 30 days, I would just request 16 days to bring us to the second meeting in May, which would be May 27th.
That date would be great.
Okay, so then it would be a continuation until May 13th with an extension of 16 days, bringing us to May 27th.
Okay.
And Leanne and I discussed this last time, that however we did the last extension left you 2 days short of that. So this helps bump it up.
That's fine.
That's what I thought you said. Okay.
If I could ask a question, should I be reviewing this plan set or should I be waiting for a revised plan?
How soon will you have a plan for Sean to review with our updated requests per se?
We have to have a conversation with Deb as to what changes we're putting in there.
Okay.
So again, I'll get back to
as soon as possible, Sean.
Yeah.
And then you're gonna have your electrical engineer talk to Sean and get that solar wattage squared away.
Yes.
All right, great.
There's a possibility that I may not be here on that meeting in May.
The May 13th?
I'm not sure right now.
Okay. If we have quorum, they've always liked to proceed. We have a remote option.
I may be on the road, that's the thing.
We'll continue to that date and time and ensure a quorum.
All right, so I'll take a motion to continue to the 13th with a 30-day extension after that?
With a 16-day
16-day extension, okay.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, there is no new business. Ladies and gentlemen, that portion of the meeting.
That needs to be by roll call vote because Mary advised him.
Chris, yes.
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
29.
Okay.
27.
Thank you.
27.
Ladies and gentlemen, that part of the meeting on Village Green is over. Next meeting will be May 13th. We'll go from there. Thank you.
Thank you.